Hi there, my name's Danny Brooks. I'm a personal trainer and boxing coach, and you'll be able to find out a little bit more about me and what I do by visiting Danny Brooks Personal Training on Facebook. Over the years, I've had many people approach me seeking my assistance because they're struggling to make some positive changes to their life, whether it be they're struggling with motivation, identifying their goals, or simply just not knowing where to start. Other people have already started to make some changes, but they're at a stage where they're struggling to maintain their motivation, and therefore they come to me for that help and advice to keep them going. At the end of the day, we make positive changes to our lifestyle because we have a goal in mind. And therefore in this video, we're going to be looking at those stages of behaviour change and how they impact and help us maintain motivation, that we can keep going and we can actually achieve those goals that we set. When we start looking at behaviour change, we need to understand three main elements. They are our readiness to change, because we need to make sure that at that time we have the knowledge, we have the resources in order to succeed. We need to be ready. We also need to understand our barriers to change, those factors that may get in our way that prevent us from taking those steps into achieving our goals. But we also need to understand the likelihood of relapse based on those barriers and other factors that may trigger a step back to our old behaviours, returning us to the way we were before we tried to make the change. To help identify these factors, it's really important that we have a look in a little bit more detail each stage of our behaviour change. We can do this by having a look at what is called the Transtheoretical Model. It takes us through 5 stages of behaviour change and helps us identify all the elements that we need to ensure that we're ready, to ensure that we understand our barriers, and to ensure that we understand what factors are likely to trigger a relapse. The first stage of the Transtheoretical Model is called Pre-Contemplation. This is the stage where we may know or have been told that there is an issue where we need to change our behaviour, to change something in the way we live, the way we lead our lives. It's quite often common for people to be in denial and not want to accept the issue and not want to change their behaviour. The way we get around this, when we have these types of people, when you're feeling that you don't really need to change your behaviour because the problem will probably just sort itself out and go away, is to have a look at the positive aspects. If you did decide to change that behaviour, to make that change, what positive outcomes could there be? Have a look at something that you could change but haven't really thought about. And pause the video and just make a list of the positive outcomes that may result from changing that element of your lifestyle or making a change in that part of your behaviour. We may also want to look at whether or not you've tried to make a change to this part of your behaviour before. Try having a look at, well, actually we have tried before, yes, we relapsed, but what were those positive aspects? What was the good things that came out of you trying to make that change? There would have been a reason for you wanting to change in the first place on a previous occasion. These can actually help us identify those motivating factors, our motivators. It can be what we call an extrinsic motivator. In the martial arts world, if you're aiming for that next belt, that next step on the ladder, or if you're looking at your career, it's the next stage of the career level, of the career ladder. Therefore, you are looking to make that change to better yourself. There is an external factor, a prize or an award if you like. So when you reach that goal, you are going to get rewarded. You may also experience or have some intrinsic motivating factors. These are things that are inside you. Feeling more confident, looking in the mirror if it's your change of behaviours to help you lose weight, and actually feeling more confident in yourself, actually liking what you see in the mirror. It may be that you've changed your diet, and actually because you've made those changes to your diet and your nutrition, that you're feeling more energetic. You're not so lethargic. You've got more energy to play with the kids or to do a sport. You feel a lot more motivated. Once we've highlighted all these potential positive outcomes of a change in behaviour, we may move on to the next stage of the model, which is the contemplation. This is essentially where we're weighing up all the pros, all the cons, and actually identifying that things are going to get in our way. Those barriers, we need to understand what those barriers are. Once we start identifying these barriers, make a list against all those positive outcomes. Those things that are going to stop you, whether it's financial reasons, whether it's childcare, whether it's a fact that you just don't have time. I know we all have busy lives and sometimes it's extremely difficult to overcome some of these barriers. So we engage the support of friends and family. We can sit with our friends and family and look at the barriers to us changing that behaviour, and we seek their support and we find out methods using your friends and family for help and support to overcome them. Once we've done this, over a few months, sometimes could be 2, could be 3 months, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. It all depends on you, the individual. Because once we've finished contemplating, hopefully at the end of this stage, this is where we feel ready to make that change. Because we understand the positive outcomes, our motivators, but we also understand the triggers that are likely to cause that relapse, and we've thought of strategies that will allow us to overcome those should they arise. So let's have a look at the next stage of the model, that preparation stage. During this stage of the behaviour change, we may find ourselves experimenting with tiny, small changes to see what works best for us without actually having a set goal in mind. To find out what works for us, what we enjoy the most, what fits in around our schedule. You may also start looking at pricing things up. How much is it going to cost for a gym membership? If you're taking a particular class, what equipment are you going to need? Are you going to be wanting doing fitness at home? And if you're doing it at home, do we have the space available? What sort of equipment can you have in the home that would allow you to achieve your goal, to do the sort of exercises that you may need if you're doing a fitness related goal? If you're taking on a new diet and we're going to try some new recipes, do you have everything you need? How much is it going to cost in order for you to get the tools and equipment you need for that? We may also look at the availability and times and dates of classes, or the times and dates and availability of those people or other factors that we're going to use as our help and support network, because that also plays a factor. Once we've done these, we may start to think about what actually we want to achieve. We need to start setting those goals, and we're going to cover setting goals to succeed in a separate video. But we may want to set those goals, and looking at that goal, we want to have a plan of action. We may have a long-term goal that says in a year's time, in 12 months time, this is what I want to achieve. But remember, to help keep our motivation, we need to identify those intrinsic and extrinsic motivating factors, so we can actually break that goal down into short-term and mid-term goals to ensure that we reap those rewards, so we can actually measure our milestones to say what progress we're making, because that will play a big part in your confidence and help keep your motivation. Those small rewards, those extrinsic factors, those motivating, actually seeing your progress and actually seeing how you're developing. An intrinsic motivator, so your motivation builds as time goes on because you're including and seeing other factors that we hadn't calculated or considered at the beginning of our behaviour change cycle. So let's actually pause this video, make a list of those intrinsic and extrinsic motivating factors that you're aware of at this time, and then we can have a look at actually taking some action. We're now at the 4th stage of that Transtheoretical Model. We're ready to make that jump, that leap of faith, because we're about to take action. At this stage, this is where many people fail because they haven't had or look at or considered that contemplation. They haven't looked at the positive outcomes properly. They haven't identified and thought about the barriers that they may face. They don't have those strategies in place. When we get to this stage now, we are ready. We have our strategies in place. We have a support network. We know how we're going to overcome these barriers when we need to face them. So what next? Just remember, we've set those goals in that preparation stage. Make sure we've broken them down into smaller milestones that we can achieve on a weekly, bi-weekly or monthly basis. And make sure that we track our progress so we can see how we're doing, that we can maintain that motivation because we're starting to achieve our aim. We're taking steps and baby steps and getting closer and closer. But it's also about rewarding yourself. Every time you reach one of those milestones, reward yourself in some way. And reap those rewards because you're one of the people that will deserve it because you're making that change and you're doing well and you're moving forward. But also remember on a regular basis to reach out to your support network. They're there to help you. I'm here to help you. You're not on your own and you can do this and everyone is there to support you. And once we've taken action, after maybe 2 to 3 months, we're moving on into a good place of the last stage of the Transtheoretical Model for behaviour change, that maintenance stage. This last stage of the behaviour change process is probably the hardest of them all. To keep going, to keep maintaining that motivation. And the reason it's so hard to keep going is because we may have achieved our goals that we originally set. It may be that we've gone out and we're starting to get a little bit bored following that same routine. So we need to have some strategies in place to overcome this. And that's why we set those small milestones. And once we start getting near to achieving our long-term goal, we sit down and we go back to the beginning and we reassess those goals in the preparation stage and say, right, okay, I've made these massive changes. Where do I go next? How can I develop even further? In order to make sure that we ingrain these new behaviours into our lifestyle, we stand the most chance of actually keeping this change in behaviour if we keep at it for 6 months or more. This is where it gets ingrained in our system, in the brain, so it becomes a habit rather than something we're trying to change. And once we get to that point where it's a habit, we're in a really good place to succeed. We're almost there. So just remember, regularly change your exercises if you're changing your behaviour related to fitness. If you're on a diet, remember to reassess your diet. Remember to change those recipes, have a change in what you're eating, but make sure it sticks to actually moving towards and achieving your goal. Make sure, again, we reiterate, make sure every time you reach one of those smaller milestones, make sure you reap the rewards, you reward yourself for all your hard work. Unfortunately, at any stage of this model, we can relapse because we may come across something that we haven't thought of. But that's okay. If we have a relapse, don't dwell on it. Don't think, right, that's it, we go back to our old behaviours. We simply go back to that preparation stage. We reassess. We may go back to the contemplation stage and say, okay, I know we still got these positive outcomes that are there. But what barrier have I come across that I didn't think about before? I've overcome other barriers. I can overcome this one, and you can. Engage again with your support network. Think of overcome that barrier. Set yourself some new goals, and we get back into taking action again, and we start that process from the action stage back into the maintenance stage, and we can keep it going. I hope you found this video useful. I hope that actually pausing the video and actually following these strategies and putting these strategies in place is actually going to help you in the long run. Remember, you're not on your own. You can do this. You will always have help and support. If you need any further help and assistance, you can get help. You can message me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But for now, please take on board, have a think about the content of this video and let me know your feedback. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon for another video where we'll be looking at setting those goals to help you succeed. For now, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon and hearing all your feedback. Thank you for listening, but for now, goodbye.